just make
If
sure
you're
it's
going
on.
west from town,
Yeah,
it's slow on the H1 when you get to the Hickam curve, and an accident on the H1 ever bounded by Sears. The Moana Lewis slows at the top of Red Hill. Out west, got an accident on Fort Weaver Road at Colawaka Drive.
You're going to have to focus on it, you know, because you can't lose your concentration for a minute. You reframe the camera then?
Yeah.
Okay, so the three of us are equidistant.
I don't see you still.
Include the three of us.
One more.
You have to move it over. Unlock
Jay-
it. You know how? Remember how to unlock it? No. This is the lock, and it's much too tight. It's going to break that way. Okay, so let me move. Why don't we all move, Sharon?
Yeah. I think it's
One of you
better
guys
Sharon
move.
sits in
So
the
make sure
center.
you get a good shot. Oh, and these cameras have to be refocused now that we moved, right? So please refocus them for Miley.
Yeah, 3 and 2 are off.
2 and 3, yeah.
Hawaii, the state of clean energy, is
put
also
what?
brought to you by Hawaiian Electric Company,
Okay.
powering the growth and development of Hawaii since it was chartered by King Kalakaua in 1891. Today, Hawaiian Electric and its subsidiaries, Maui Electric and Hawaii Electric Light Company, serve more than 95% of our state, providing reliable electric service essential to our quality of life. The Hawaiian Electric companies are also leading our transition to clean energy. By increasing our renewable energy use and improving energy efficiency, we're reducing Hawaii's dependence on
That's
imported
better,
oil
yeah.
and in providing a more sustainable and secure
Make sure these
future
two
for
cameras,
Hawaii.
2 and 3,
For more
are.
information, visit
You only have a few seconds left. Those 2 and 3
Hawaii,
okay?
the state of clean energy, is also
No,
brought
come
to
this way.
you by
Come
the
this way.
State Energy Office of the
Look up there.
Department of Business,
see.
Economic
See over
Development,
there?
and Tourism.
Wanna be in.
How can we secure a better future for Hawaii? One way is clean energy, and the State Energy Office is steering Hawaii to that clean energy future. Hawaii is rich with natural renewable resources, the sun, the wind, the ocean, and the land, and they are all being tapped to meet Hawaii's clean energy initiatives to generate electricity, create jobs, spur economic growth, and reduce our dependence on imported foreign oil. To learn more, visit energy.hawaii.gov.
Our sponsor will be happy.
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
Well, here we are. We're back. We're live. Thank you, Jack Waters. This is ThinkTech Wednesday, and that means Energy Wednesday, and that means Hawaii, the state of clean energy, and that means the Energy Policy Forum, and HECO, Hawaiian Electric, and Hawaii Energy, among others.
And DBED.
And DBED. Thank you. All three of those are the progenitors of this show, organizing it at the beginning of the year. Thank you very much for that, Sharon. And Sharon is the co-chair of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, which is a very important organization that brings together nearly 50 stakeholders in the energy industry, government, and academia to talk about solving our energy problems and making a plan for the future. And you run
Very
it.
good.
Thank you, Sharon.
Well, thank you, Jay.
And we are delighted to have Dave Rolf with us. Dave is the executive director of the Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association to talk about electric cars. And you know, this is not and the dealer's perspective with regard to electric cars. It's very important because they have to be on board. And Dave watches it all the time. As a matter of fact, he watches the news even today about electric cars. What's going on, Dave?
Well, it came across my desk today. I think it was published a little bit earlier, but arrived in the mail today, and I opened it up, and it talked about that the Obama administration has announced the number of credits that each one of the manufacturers will receive for producing cars that get the mile per gallon targets that they wanted to hit. So if you're below that target, you get credit for not putting so many tons of CO2 in the air. And if you're above that target, well, you don't get any, and then at some point, eventually that car above the target, if you don't have enough credits, has to stop being produced.
Well, you know, Miley Alsop was here a few minutes ago, and she talked about a home monitoring system as the prize that you get if you win the contest on suggestions for energy savings. So if I
You
get
see
a
it
lot
coming.
of credits, do I get a prize? Do I get a home monitoring system?
A car monitoring system.
Miley, where are you?
Well, I want to be clear about that whole aspect of not being produced. I mean, there's speculation that because there can't be a fine anymore, which is what happened in the past under the CAFE standards, that if you didn't have enough credits, then the cars that you were producing that were putting too much CO2 into the air might not be able to be produced. And so it's not an absolute, but that's why the manufacturers actually have gotten together and they've begun to start to write a letter saying, I don't know if we can make this or not, because it's really a strident and stringent standard, 54.5 miles per gallon by the year 2025.
Wow.
So let me understand. So you have to get credits. And if you don't get credits, you get penalized.
Well, penalized in the old days in the way of a monetary fine, but now the new concept is that since the EPA cannot fine anyone, all they could do would be prohibit that that those cars above the credit, if your fleet was averaging above the credit, you'd have to reduce enough in manufacturing to get your fleet down below the average that you had to maintain. And in 2025, that's 54.5 miles per gallon for all the cars and trucks in your fleet.
You know what that sounds like? It sounds like curtailment. Doesn't it, Sharon? We worry about curtailment in the
This one is a
energy
good way,
industry.
for a good purpose.
Yeah.
This is for a good purpose.
Well, I think that's why you see so many electric cars being made, and why, as I counted the other day, about 31 of them, I can't tell you each one of the models yet, are on the books through the year 2016. So you're going to see a lot of different models being made because manufacturers get double credit in mileage for an electric car. So that's why they're trying to produce so many of them and to get the uptake for those cars. Now, Hawaii's done a better job on the uptake than any other state in the union.
What do you mean uptake?
Well, I mean that more people per capita here have bought electric cars than any other state in the union. And that's because I think of radio shows like this, and I think it's very much because the people in Hawaii have seen it as a natural transition. We have all this fabulous renewable energy here from wind and wave and sun and geothermal and ocean thermal and garbage to energy. And so people said, well, I can get the sun from my roof, do some net metering, and put that into my car at night, and I can drive down to the concert with my neighbors, which is what happened to me this weekend. My friend and neighbor said, hey, I'm going down to the Stravinsky concert at Central Union. Would you like to go? I said, in your Volt, we'll go down there on Sunshine. And he said, well, sure, we'll drive down on Sunshine. The sunshine I produced on my roof. And
That's great.
22 miles he had on his little chart when I got in the car. And it was 22 miles exactly down to the Central Union Church to hear the Stravinsky concert.
I knew we were going to hit poetry here.
Well, music anyway.
But let me take a moment and remind everyone, if they didn't know, they should know, that Sharon owns an electric
That's
car.
right. I love it too.
Yeah, talk about it, will you?
Yeah, I'm in a condo, so we had to do a lot to get the charger into the condo.
Oh, I bet you did.
Yeah, so we were the early adopters, and now it's just wonderful. And I think Hawaii is just perfect because of the size. That we have range anxiety every now and again when we go out to like Haleiwa, but for the most part, you charge it every night and you have it ready to go the next day, and it's working like I pass all the gas stations and say bye-bye. I don't need to worry.
Smile at them and wave at them
Yeah.
as you go by.
Well, that's a popular one you own. It's the Leaf, the Nissan
Leaf.
Leaf. And I got
That's
a
right.
notice from one of the Nissan dealers that they, together, all the Nissan dealers in Hawaii had sold 50 of these by the 20th, which means they may sell 75 by the end of the month. And that,
Now, is
oh my
there a
goodness.
quota for Hawaii as a state bringing in these cars, or the more you sell, the more you can get?
It's sort of like that. It's based on
That's
turnover.
great.
So if you sell a lot, you get more. But that's pretty interesting that it's becoming that popular. The leases are very attractive right now, and of course,
What do they cost?
well, I think it's best to contact your Nissan dealer on that. But I've seen them in the $200.
That's very politic of you, Dave.
Well, yeah, in the range of the $200 a month leases, plus or minus 20%.
That's not too
plus
bad. I mean,
20%, I guess. I don't
pay a
know.
lot more for some of the ordinary
Oh, yeah.
conventional
Just the
cars.
gas that you have to pay for in some of these.
Yeah, I've seen some of those leases at $300 a month, but yeah, they're an affordable vehicle now,
Yeah.
and it starts to pencil out as people start thinking how they're going to pass those
And I,
gas
and
stations.
I think you're still getting the income tax, the federal income tax credit. I think hasn't met its limit yet, so people who purchase can still get.
Is that
an
your
income
way of
tax.
saying that the
There
state
still
credit is gone?
If
There's
the
no more
state
money
credit
for
is
that.
gone,
State
that was federal
4,500 is
stimulus.
gone.
Yeah, that
but the
was
federal tax credit now, it's not, you don't get that money unless you have a tax liability. So $7,500, and it looks like that might be extended. Even with the sequester and everything, it might be extended. So.
I'd like to see that. You know, one thing that people forget about electric cars is the short strokes about the benefits you get in parking.
Oh, yes, the
You
parking.
don't have to pay a
That is
parking
a
meter,
state
right?
benefit.
Am I right about that?
That's right. The state benefit is that you can park for 2.5 hours for free in any public parking stall.
Yeah, I
And
noticed
that's
that.
until 2020, I think, so that's a good
Well,
deal.
I drive in from Mililani and I looked over there in the HOV lane, and there were a lot of people driving single in the car because they can drive an EV in that lane.
Oh, that too.
Oh, that
there must be
too.
half a dozen
I
really
see a lot of
terrific
them,
things like that.
people using that. Yeah, so you have the great parking benefit. You can pass the gas station as the benefit. You can take the power from your roof and put it in your car, and it's kind of a good feeling about that. And then they're attractive cars. They're full of wonderful features, and like I said,
and HECO gives you, if you do it off peak hours, you get a break also in your rate, your electricity
About a
rate, if
6
you're,
cent
if you're not
break.
using PV. Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of Hawaii has really moved forward on that, and the charging stations are here in greater number per capita than any other state in the union. We in 2011 was the last figure I had, but we had one level 2 charging station. That's the one
That's
that
the one that goes fast.
Fast.
faster.
What, talking 10
240.
minutes? What?
No.
30 minutes, I think. Something, but fast.
It will help go a lot faster than the wall unit, of course, about twice as fast as the wall unit in charging the car. But we have one per 5,500 residents, where let's say Oregon had one per 11,000 residents, so they were the next closest. So a lot of those out there. They're in the shopping centers. The new law, the law in Hawaii required that for every 100 public parking spaces that you offered, if you had 100, you had to have one of these level 2 charging stations.
There are 2 in Ala Moana shopping center. They're always filled. Somebody's always there.
Well, speaking of how fast it goes then, so your vehicle, which can get around, 85 miles per
No,
charge?
105.
Okay,
Yeah.
100 miles per charge. It takes a full 4 hours from near zero to full if you do it on fast charging, and between 8 and 10 if you do
Right.
it on the wall charge, just the slower 110 wall charge.
Well, how are sales?
Well, sales are strong too. I brought that exact number. In fact, we had predicted, this was kind of scary, because in 2008, when the dealers voted to be supportive of developing renewable energy on the islands,
This is your dealership organization.
the Hawaii dealers, I presented a Deutsche Bank study to them, and I asked for 1 hour of their time. And they granted me that with a large blackboard, and I filled it up with calculations and figures and data for a full 60 minutes. And so Nick Cutter, at that point, after I was finished, said thank you, because it was kind of a compelling presentation. Now, imagine in 2008 we didn't have electric cars, and here's this 300-page document on their desk in front of all of them, and said, what do you want us to do, based on all these calculations? And I said, if you would vote to fast track the development of renewable energy, I think you would go on record as auto dealers for saying you would back this. At the time, Governor Linda Lingle had come up with the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. Sharon was so involved in that whole
2008, that's
Yes,
what it was.
yes. And so in August of 2008, the dealers, Nick Cutter moved with that motion, and Eric Fukunaga seconded. And the dealers in Hawaii were the first dealers in America to go on record as saying, we're supportive of this direction. And people wondered, well, wouldn't auto dealers oppose this because you don't make as much money on electric cars, and you have to spend a lot of money to bring them in.
So why did they do it?
I think they're broad-thinking people, and they have their names on the buildings. They have a great cherished love of their community, and it surprises people. I think a lot of elected officials wondered, why did you back this when you lost money to bring in all this training, you lost money to bring in all these charging units, you lost. Why did you do it? And I think they saw that it was something the state wanted to do. Everybody in the state committed to it. Are they going to stand outside the box and not be part of helping? That was one thing. And number two, if they didn't get involved in that, it looked like the direction the country was headed with these CAFE standards and these other things was going to require it anyway. So somewhat practical. And then number three, the Chinese were developing a lot of electric cars at the time. And then the question is, what if somebody cracks the code and figures out how to get a battery with 300-mile charge, and all of a sudden everything just opens up? I think they wanted to be prepared for any of that too. So it was a good business reason too. But I think a lot of it had to do with just wanting to support what the rest of the community was supporting.
Yeah. But inherent in it, though, is the conclusion that this is the way the world is heading.
Well, no, I wouldn't say that at all, okay?
Well,
because the dealers did not
This
conclude.
wouldn't be the first time you've disagreed with
Well,
me on this.
I would say that there's a great deal of skepticism as to whether it can actually work from the standpoint of, will the battery continue to increase with its ability to take a charge, and will its cost come down? I mean, it started up there around $1,100 a kilowatt hour for a battery. So the batteries that Sharon's car has are $20,000 plus batteries, right? So the theory would be, and the Obama administration said that it would go down to 100 something per kilowatt hour for the battery. I mean, it would come down to 1/10 of what it was. Well, rarely can you get something down to 1/10 of something that's been in place for years and decades. I mean, just overnight. So they said at the time, this transition to ubiquity, if it was going to be in the way.
Transition to ubiquity. Now, I'm not going to say again that we have poetry in
If
our
there is
history.
ubiquity, to a ubiquitous EV environment would take 28 years. And so the dealers said that out the chute too. Because that's how long it took the cell phone to become ubiquitous.
Yeah.
About 28 years from that big brick that we all bought back then, the Motorola.
But it goes faster and faster as you get close to the end of the cycle.
You certainly saw that, didn't you? I mean,
Yeah.
but unlike TV sets, which just came out the chute, and in 3 years they were sort of everywhere in American households, it won't be that way with the electric car. So they've had to boost it with the tax credits, and then they've put this big rule in place called the Corporate Average Fuel Economy Standard. And wow, 54.5 mile per gallon average of all your fleet. So the only way manufacturers saw they could get there was because the Obama administration had placed into the formula a double credit for electrics. And so that's why you see a lot of them being produced.
Well, I mean, it sounds like we're at kind of a tipping point. I mean, this is now, 5 years later after that decision, and that support. Have we gotten as far as we might have gotten? Have we made the kind of progress that they anticipated, that you anticipated 5 years ago?
Well, interestingly enough, it was almost exactly what I had anticipated in the year 2008. So I'm sitting there, after they vote to do that, I set up a chart that will map out how many cars need to be sold in order to hit the goal in the next 20 years. So if you look on this chart of 2012, I was back here in 2008, 4 years earlier, how could I have hit it within 2 cars? I mean, I just was almost hit it exactly, even when we didn't even know what cars are going to be produced. I think that's a little bit of luck, but there's 1,000.
Within 2 cars?
Yeah.
2.
Within two
cars.
Right. So 1,250 were produced, and I had anticipated about 100,252. So what a
scary
luck.
day.
It's kind of a scary guess, but I must have had 50 hours into that calculation. I must have gotten everything I could find from every manufacturer everywhere. But then again, it's going to be a lot of luck 4 or 5 years out, because everyone will tell you, you can't possibly know. But yet, here we have a chart that shows what it is 20 years out.
Yeah.
And the reason we did that is we said that to hit the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative, you'd have to sell this many per year. Well, the dealers have made every effort they could to stay on that graph. Because, Nissan wasn't going to make us a rollout market. So they were only going to do 6 rollout markets in the country. Sharon helped on this, DBED helped on this, and Hada helped on this. We asked Nissan, would you make us the 7th rollout market? And they said, well, you're such a small market, I don't know if we can support it. Will the dealers support it? I said, the dealers are on record as being supportive. And so we became the 7th rollout market for the Nissan Leaf. And that's why I think when you ask me from the dealer's perspective, they're trying to help the community. And hats off to those Nissan dealers for doing that.
Yeah,
Certainly
really.
to the Volt dealers, they're doing it, and to the Prius,
great.
plug-in Prius dealers.
But it's not time to get rid of your regular mechanics yet.
No, I mean, you can see that on the chart, most of the sales are still, have an internal combustion
I mean,
engine.
it's compelling. I mean, the cars are better. I mean, the conventional cars are better. They look good. They meet the standards. A lot of them are really beautiful. And they got great technology in them. They got great electronics
EVs
in
look
them.
good too. I think my
EVs are bound to be the best in that department.
Well designed. I mean, the Leaf is really
But
well
the
designed.
ordinary person, you say, well, you're going to get a new car. Yeah. What kind of car are you going to get? And he tells you the kind of car that he's been thinking about for years.
Right. Yeah.
And it's
people
a
have those
conventional
dreams.
car. He's fixed on the conventional car. So it's hard to change buying patterns, is what I'm saying.
Some of the makers are already moving into more energy efficient cars, so you can get that car, but the model itself, the engine, is being run on say energy efficient technology. Like Lexus is coming out with its own energy efficient like hybrid.
Sure, and you have the Ford with the
so stuff.
EcoBoost, and you remember the Clean Energy Initiative has 30% of it is what's called efficiencies, which means that you actually just get higher mile per gallon with the internal combustion engine. But you mentioned that cars are made so much better nowadays. I remember when I was growing up, if you ever had a car roll over, get to 100,000 miles, that was just an amazing thing. You just knew that it couldn't last much longer. But the Obama administration uses as the average projected vehicle lifetime of cars 195,264 miles.
Wow.
Wow. And they say that an average car that gets 40 miles per gallon will release 43.4 metric tons over that lifetime. And what they're saying, if you release fewer than 43.4 metric tons, you get some credits. And that's how the credits build up.
So, I mean, do you feel this is a good system with the credits? I mean, is this working? Is this doing what was intended?
Well, Bob Lutz came out, and he was with...
He's a big GM person.
Yeah, he is, yes. And he was a A4 driver. He was a Skyhawk pilot.
Just like you.
I flew that
All
many
the
years
best
ago.
people, Dave.
Well, I sure loved flying that airplane, and I have great respect for Bob Lutz. And so he came out in a speech, what was it, last week, who said, to answer your question, and I want to be clear that Bob Lutz said this, and not the Hawaii Auto Dealers, nor me, nor anyone else, but a very prominent figure said this. They asked him what would happen if they made you king of the auto industry. And he said, first of all, I wouldn't accept king. I would only be emperor, he said, of the whole United States. He said, and then I would fix the whole problem with the transitioning in energy by not forcing the manufacturers to make the changes through these CAFE standards. He said, I would add, and this is Bob Lutz, recall, would add a 25 cent a gallon tax to a gallon of gas and add 25 cents every year for 4 years. He said you would repair all the roads, you would repair all the bridges, and you would have beautifully landscaped hillsides. Well, he drew a lot of criticism for that, obviously, with people concerned. But it was the first guy in history that I know of in the auto industry, other than Michael Jackson, who was owned one of the big groups, had said it earlier. To come out and say there is taxing gasoline that actually would cause that transition to occur. But since that likely won't occur, and because of a lot of objection to it, and it would be very hard to structure the credit system to make sure the people that were driving long distances wouldn't have to pay an additional amount for people who drove short distances. It's a very complex thing what Lutz proposes. This CAFE standard is what is the game that's in place. I mean, and I don't want to call it a game necessarily, but that's what's in place, the laws that are in place, and the manufacturers are abiding by the laws.
Okay, we're in another time, aren't we? And indeed, it's time for a break. We're going to take this short break. We're here with Dave Rolf of the Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association and Sharon Moriwaki of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum, coming together on electric cars. Electric cars, the dealer's perspective. We'll be right back after this break.
Wow, that's very good.
760 KGU.
Part of the
Okay, we'll
Wall
talk
Street
about
Business
dark
Network.
side
But
now.
talk
Lane
about
closures
the
in
dark
both
side.
directions
I wanted
on
to also
Powell
clarify.
between Ottoman Boulevard and Ena Road because of a water main break down there.
2015.
If you're
So
headed
December
into or
31st,
out of
2014.
Waikiki, expect
just next
delays
year. They
in
won't
that
even-
area.
cars won't even
Maybe
close.
better
Aren't
to
we
take
supposed to have
Macaulay
10,000
or
cars here in Hawaii
Kapahulu.
And by
too?
2015,
out of
right.
Waikiki.
10
If you're in West
possibly
Kingston,
have
really slow traffic this
1250.
afternoon. It's because of an accident earlier at the
So we're not
Waimalu
even
Pearl
a fourth of
City
the way
exit.
there. No, that
No,
I don't
it's a
think
little
we could
over 10,
possibly get 10,000.
little over 10%.
And here, what they
20,
said
that's-
10,000 by 2015, but I didn't say that. This is what I said. Now that was 10,000 on the roadways. So this is the number 300. That's 700. So that's 1,000. That's another 1,000. So that's 2,000. That's 1800, so that's 38.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Look at the box and tell me the switch is on. For some reason, it's number 3, right?
Yeah.
Is it all the way up, Dave, on the box? It says on.
Are you not catching me?
Doesn't look like it. It's okay, we got the cover mic in front of us.
Okay. Oh, I don't hear it. I don't hear it either. I don't.
Maybe that, is it pushed in,
Is it-
all the way plugged in?
Is the switch on?
The switch is on. All the way up, right?
Yeah.
All the way up?
And I think I hear myself. Oh, that's I'm picked up from there. Is what's happening.
And it's all in?
Where am I? Sorry.
Okay.
At some point, you can have time for auto watts, because that would be interesting.
It's
too.
everything plugged in, Dave. Can you talk for a second? Talk to me.
Let's see if I
With the
can.
Kahiava Wind Farm on Maui and
Hello,
the
hello,
Kahuku
hello.
and
No,
Kawailoa
it's picking
Wind
up over
Farms
there.
on
Hello,
Oahu,
hello,
First
hello,
Wind
hello.
is pleased to create clean,
Sorry.
local sources of energy
You haven't
powered
had
by
enough?
Hawaii's trade winds.
Plugged in?
Understanding our unique environment and host culture, First Wind develops projects that
Why don't
support
you use
local
hers?
communities and
Oh, yeah.
provide
Miley,
benefits to
Miley, give
native
him yours.
wildlife, embracing the concept of caring from Mauka to Makai. Hu Kamakani. May the wind blow towards a sustainable future for Hawaii's people. For more information, visit firstwind.com.
ThinkTech Energy Wednesday is also brought to you by Hawaii Energy. Hawaii Energy
Is
is
it
a
on?
ratepayer-funded conservation and efficiency program administered by SAIC under contract with the Hawaii Public Utilities Commission, serving the islands of Hawaii, Lanai, Maui, Molokai, and Oahu.
Why don't you just take the whole thing that you use, Miley, and give it to them?
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
We're back, we're live, and we're about to hear more from Dave Rolf.
Dave.
But let me tell you
Dave,
that
why
ThinkTech
don't you
live
sit here?
streams all of its talk shows live
I'll
on the
work on it.
internet. We put streaming video on Ustream and streaming
I'll do it.
audio on Spreaker.
Just move
If
on.
you want to catch us
move
live,
this.
these video
Use
and
all of
audio
this.
streams are available on our website. You can check them out on thinktechhawaii.com. Remember, too, we have a gallery here in the studio for a live audience in our downtown ThinkTech studio, and you can come down and be a member of that audience. You can pose questions to our guests, like Dave Rolf, and you can participate in the discussion, like Sharon Moriwaki. To reserve your place, write to me, Jay Fidell, at j@fidell.com, or j@thinktechhawaii.com. Okay, I also want to mention that we have a program only tomorrow, Thursday, April 25th at the Plaza Club. It's called Hawaii's Growing Financial Connection with Asia and How We Can Make It Grow All the Faster. Hawaii is the bridge to Asia, and what kind of a role can it play on that bridge? Maybe we don't fully understand that, and maybe we have to make it play a greater role. So we're going to look at what the growing financial connection is, exactly how it expresses itself in terms of moving money, moving investment, moving jobs, import, export, all kinds of things that connect us up, not only with China, but all of Asia. So in this program, we're going to illuminate the bridge to Asia, and it'll be moderated by Varian Allen of Merrill Lynch. He's an investment manager there. Stephen Connell, Roger Epstein. Roger Epstein's an international tax attorney. David Day, an international business attorney, and Brad Punu. And we'll have opening remarks from Senator Kalani English, which is great because he came down to our transportation program, the one that Dave moderated a couple months ago, and he was a terrific opening speaker. And the reason is that Senator English is the chair of the Senate Committee on Transportation and International Relations. So it's just perfect to have him.
It's a perfect tie-in to with transportation and international relations, because we have memorandums of understanding with China, with Japan, and with Korea on this very subject of energy.
Yeah, that's great. I hope you're going to come down, Dave.
Sure.
Okay,
Looking forward to it.
can we pick you up at your office and drag you?
I'd be glad to be there. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, Senator English really is on top of this, and so is the state. In fact, you see Governor Abercrombie's folks really on top of it too. And I had the privilege. You talk about connection with China. I got a call at my house saying, "Can you get a visa real quick? I need to have you over in Beijing." And it was the mayor at the time, at Carlisle at the time.
I remember this.
Yeah, he said, "Can you get over there?" And I said, "And do what?" And he said, "Be the plenary speaker at the largest EV conference in the world." What? And so I had to have all that translated into Mandarin, and I was on the plane before I knew it. And in front of, you could see the curvature of the earth in that building. It was so big.
It's just a great hall of the people?
No, it wasn't a great hall of the people. It was at that same area. It was at the Olympic
Sure,
Park,
in Beijing.
at their convention center. And so there were all these cars, all these electric cars. And they were having the pickle that we're having here in the U.S. because the Obama administration indicated we'd have 1 million cars on the road by the end of by 2015.
Yeah.
And
Where are we now?
Won't be anywhere close to that. I don't know the national number. I know here our goal was 10,000, and we were Sharon and I were just counting it up here that
Over 10%, not quite.
yeah, well, we have 1,200 in now by right here, but it's like you say, it ramps up. So if we started adding 1,000 a year, and then 2,000 a year. But it would have to be an entire combined effort from lots of people. I think you'd have to have, just a lot of people involved to make that work.
Well, I wanted to talk about, the challenges and the issues and the problems. And one of them, there's many actually, but one of them is hydrogen. Because there are people out there, and I will not name their names. Maybe I should name their names. We can talk about that.
all
They're
right.
doing research.
Who like hydrogen cars, who are doing research right here in HNEI.
Well, I drove the one that came off the boat. Matson brought one in 3 years ago, a GM Equinox. They didn't have anybody who could take it over to J&N Chevrolet where it was going to be stored. So I was a test pilot in my younger days, and so I said I probably can make that work.
Yeah.
So how did it drive?
It's seamless. It's just like driving a gasoline car. Except it's quiet because of an electric motor, of course. And it was wonderful. Yeah. So hydrogen's on the way too. And of course, there's a bill in the legislature that's yesterday. In fact, it was in front of Conference Committee.
Yeah.
House Bill 450 that is going to put funding toward establishing in counties above 170,000 people, which would be on the island of Hawaii and then Oahu, a hydrogen fueling station. Somewhere in the year 2015, possibly.
And it all seems so disjointed because they're both, other than gas, fossil fuel, oil, gas. Which one do we like? I mean, are we going to have them both? They kind of compete with each other. They have different kind of fueling stations, different kind of fuel, the different kind of technology, different kind of dealer maintenance obligations.
Not so much. They're fundamentally both electric cars because electric motors drive the wheels. It's just one of those electric motors gets its power from a hydrogen fuel cell, the other from a giant battery. So those cars are not that far apart. That hydrogen fuel cell, there's a lot of heat involved in that whole process, and so that's one of the most difficult things they've had to deal with, is kind of dissipating that heat. But I think they'll get through that. And the permeability of the membrane in the hydrogen fuel cell, my son's an 8th grade science teacher in Waco, Texas. He grew up here, born and raised here, but teaches 8th grade science in Waco. And I said, I had physics in college and I had chemistry, but it's the 8th grade science really that I have to rely on most of anything in trying to understand all this in the hydrogen cars and electric
It all
cars.
happens in the 8th grade.
It does. 8th grade's important to all of you with kids out there in that 8th grade, and all you 8th grade science teachers. Now, I by the way, I did write one rhyme, and I will say that. Well, where should America place its reliance? 8th grade science.
I knew.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, but you don't have to hold back on this. We can tolerate more poetry on Bishop Street.
Well, we need education, and of course, and that's the biggest thing. That's what the Auto Association is. It's a 501c6, and that means its purpose is education, and it helps educate dealers in the laws that they have to abide by, mainly. In other words, our role is to help auto dealers comply with the laws to make car buying trouble-free. Well, the Clean Energy Initiative is a sort of a voluntary abidance by the law because there is no fine or penalty in it. But the electric company has to deal with all those, of course. But that's why the dealers are trying to do this voluntarily instead of without having fines. The carrot and stick question.
Well, how do you see it unfolding in terms of the electric car versus the hydrogen car? Are we going to have them both? I grant you that there's a similar technology. Once you get finished with producing the electricity, the whole drivetrain and the engine are really the same.
Right.
It's just getting the electricity there at that point. But they are different. Which one will prevail? Which one will you buy first, Dave? You too, Sharon. Actually, you've already made your choice.
Well, what the hydrogen car at the moment provides is like 300-mile range, and so
That's important.
that's one of the important things. And so the other thing, I think the key thing will be is what will be the cost of electricity, because electricity has to be used to electrolyze or to crack the hydrogen, either out of a methane process or from water. And so at the 31 cents a kilowatt hour level, it makes for quite expensive hydrogen per kilogram. But if you can get it down into the 7 to 10 cent a kilowatt hour level for the electricity, then you can get hydrogen down to where it's like $2 a gallon gas.
Isn't that coming? Isn't that coming? For example, we have curtailment, not to use that word again, going on in Maui. And we don't have a cable or anything, so if curtailment is happening, that means we're spilling electricity
And you could
into
use
the
that.
nether. We could store that in hydrogen. We wouldn't waste anything.
That's a wonderful point.
You know?
That's an absolutely wonderful point. And I think that's what people are realizing. I think a lot of people are figuring out, let's take that curtailed energy. It's like day-old bread. You'd have to throw it away, or like spots on TV that you don't use. I mean, what are you going to do? Can you not fill it? Fill something in there. How about making hydrogen that can then go into vehicles? Or how about storing it in batteries, or putting it in electric cars at night? And that's the whole big question, is how that's going to work
It
out.
just strikes me, it's like our studio here. May I refer to that? It's a work in progress, and we use the best technology we can, and we learn. We take a step forward, then we have to fix, and so forth.
And adjust.
Adjust, and all the pieces have to talk to each other and work. And it's the same thing with this, with transportation, because we really haven't addressed it, in a plenary way up till now. With all these new technologies that are being developed even as we speak. And it's very hard to make it all come together into a comprehensive solution with so many moving parts.
And about 20,000 moving parts in a car, right? But the wonderful, wonderful cars that are coming out on the roadways nowadays. I mean, my goodness. I mean, I just always wanted to have a car with push-button windows, but now they have push-button everything. The mirrors do this, and the seats move all back and forth, and you can drop seats, and the hatch goes up automatically, and the windshield wipers do special things, and the lights look around the corner, and it's the most amazing thing. You talk about the electrification of the car. Just the things that move in the car on electric servo is amazing.
The other problem is, should we build charging stations for both hydrogen and electric charging stations side by side? Do we need to have a complete different set for each one? Don't we have to make a choice here? Don't answer that just yet, Dave. We'll put the pressure on right after this break, and then Sharon and I will require you to answer that. That's Dave Rolf, the quiet guy. From the Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association. We're talking about electric cars, the dealer's perspective. And it's Dave and Sharon Moriwaki and me. We'll be right back after this break.
760 KGU.
Part of the Wall Street Business Network.
No problems going over to the windward side.
Are you okay,
although
Miley?
Expect rain
Okay.
over there and in the mountains. We do have one accident reported. It's on Kalani on Ole Highway heading down to Kailua at Kapa'a Quarry Road.
Oh, okay.
No problems
Okay.
to
All right, that's
Hawaii.
fine.
Going west,
Good
the
move.
H1 is backed up to the airport exit.
Live radio, the magic of live radio, television. and
These are
internet.
very good questions, and you are having us reveal things that just nobody's heard anywhere else. I mean, you haven't read this in the newspaper, you haven't heard it on the radio stations anywhere. This is some fascinating thing here that, and the dealers haven't even totally understood this yet. I was talking to several of them today, and they went, "What?" And here's a guy who tried to play the game and play loopholes and sell it. He got caught in the deal and ended up being dismissed because he just, it's a tough game. It's a tough game. And it's very different from when they were under the CAFE standards, the old NHTSA CAFE standards, because they stayed about 24 miles per gallon since 1984. They didn't change hardly at all. And HADA was able to ask Senator Inouye to separate cars and trucks for a little bit longer period than the Obama administration wanted to do it. Now they're combining them back again in the later part of the
So are
that
trucks
makes sense.
getting more energy efficient too, or is that still a
They
low
are, they have to,
cost?
but they just don't have to have the same standard as a car. Originally, they were saying that a truck had to have the same mile per gallon standard as a car. And we went, well, they have to pull, that has to tow a
ThinkTech
boat,
Radio
how
is
can it do
also
that?
brought to you by
And they went, well,
InmoB.
yeah, I guess
Since
that's
its inception in 2007, InmoB has grown to become the world's largest
Thank you very much.
independent
Good question.
mobile advertising network, serving over
So what do you
100
want to talk
billion
about in the
mobile
last,
ads
10
today.
minutes
It
or
has
so?
built its product in parts
I
of
was
the world
thinking
where
we
the
could talk
mobile
about
phone
where
is
it's
not
going
just a
from here,
screen,
what it
it's
looks
the
like.
only screen.
In
After
terms of
launching in the
the
U.S.
mix,
and
the
Europe in
technology,
2010,
the
InmoB
parking,
has
the
more than
congestion,
doubled its
the
global
size of the
network from
cars.
7 billion to 60 billion impressions monthly, and has offices on 4 continents, in Bangalore, Johannesburg, and London, in Nairobi, New York, and Paris,
What, the
in
electric
San
car,
Francisco,
the intermodal
Seoul,
thing.
Singapore,
Yeah, I'm
and
just not
Tokyo.
as skilled at
InmoB.
We'll let Sharon do it then.
Yeah, can you say that 92% of all
ThinkTech
trucks are made by
Hawaii is a
cars?
Hawaii
but
nonprofit
isn't
corporation
that true?
organized in the year 2000. Its purpose is to raise public awareness about the importance of technology,
so
energy,
nobody knows.
agriculture,
It's
and
just so-
globalism to the
like it's making up
diversification
our
and
own.
expansion of our economy. We do this by television shows on community television and on OC16, by newspaper articles,
That's a really good
and by
point.
our
Transportation
ThinkTech radio
paradigms.
series on
Say it again.
KGU
Transportation Paradise
760
is what we
AM.
originally
We
began
also
with
do it
as
by
the
panel
dream,
programs and events,
to make it the most
including our
wonderful
monthly luncheon programs with
connectivity.
the Hawaii Venture Capital
But
Association.
that was the dream.
ThinkTech, working to
And,
raise
that
public
would
awareness
require
in Hawaii. Check
An
us out
improved
at
ice screen, somebody in charge of
thinktechhawaii.com.
everything to do with that.
I like that.
Now back to ThinkTech Wednesday on AM 760 KGU. Here once again is your host, Jay Fidell.
Thank you, Jack Waters, and thank you, Leah Rodriguez, and thank you, Patrick Leonard, for helping us in our mission to raise public awareness. Those are the guys at KGU. Okay, so we're in the last quarter here, and our listeners should only have the chance to listen to the discussion we have during the breaks. It's really interesting. And so, we should talk about where this all fits and what the picture is going to be like going forward. I mean, it's very clear, and the Energy Policy Forum is working on this, that, we haven't really kept up on transportation. And you did a great job moderating that panel a couple of months ago. But the bottom line, correct me, I know you will, if I'm wrong, but the bottom line is that we haven't kept up with the notion of being a transportation paradise. There are pieces missing. There are big pukas in there where not everybody is getting to where they need to go as quickly as they need to get there. And we haven't solved that. So the question is, what do you take away from that program? And what can the Automobile Dealers Association, electric cars, what have you, the car vehicle, mostly passenger car vehicle, what role are they going to play going forward?
Well, I credit Sharon's group for actually bringing everyone together, and that's where the first term, a transportation paradise, came about. In other words, this multimodal type of transportation where there's great interconnectivity between buses and trains and bicycle lanes and another rhyme there, I guess, but in cars and on and on. And that's what we sort of saw and dreamed about. And of course, it's just kind of the opposite. I travel home to Mililani from downtown offices on Thursday night, and they say in the INREX study 2 years ago, that was the worst place to be in America, right? on H1, and it's 8 miles per hour. And so you add the difficulty we've had with the road maintenance over a while and the potholes that have emerged because of a number of things, but funding largely, I think. And so then you ask, how do you go to that dream? Well, the auto dealers want to help with that. I think they want to certainly help with the energy aspect of it, and then providing those vehicles that just everybody dreams about having, with all that electric backup cameras.
There's a kind of contention, a tension, if you will. The automobile dealers would like to sell cars. I mean, that's got to be at the bottom of it. Cars are already in great congestion, and they're beautiful cars. They're $50,000 parking lot cars. They sit on the freeway there, going to Mililani and all other places, and it could happen. I call them flash jams, where you get into a jam and nobody knows why, but all of a sudden, bingo, you're in a jam. And so we want to have more cars, we want to have better cars, but our infrastructure won't handle those cars. And so ultimately, we're going to have total gridlock where nobody can go anywhere.
You're going to have to address lanes. You're going to have to add capacity at some point. And so they're adding another zipper lane. They're adding, possible shoulder activity. Overhead lanes have been proposed. When those things would be all brought into the great picture, that may include the train and certainly all the bus system and the bicycle lanes, when that's brought all together in the great picture, then you get the great transportation paradise, and you can continue to grow the population as it's projected to grow, and a lot of it will happen in central Oahu.
Yeah, when you say that, I really wish that I was 2 years old, because I'm going to need a lot of time in my life to see any of those things come to pass.
Well, what if you said 28 years? I mean, what if you said you could do that whole thing in 28 years?
Well, it's doable in 28 years, but will it be done in 28 years?
Those are largely public policy decisions, and they largely have to do with how taxing is done. And certainly the manufacturers can create wonderful cars. They're talking about autonomous cars at some point here too. That'll actually help in the congestion because they can remain closer to closer, sort of like NASCAR, if you've ever seen how close they run. So you'll see a lot of that developing in future time.
But what do you see is the one thing going forward that would be the next step? At least if we did this, it would move us along. What can you think about of your experience and what we've done in the last 3 or 4 years, and what has been
the best thing that I have seen done in the last 3 or 4 years, and that actually is a program like this. And also I saw the Honolulu Star Advertiser did an entire front page with regard to electric vehicles. And because there is a goal that we keep talking about, I mean, I thought the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative may lose traction and people wouldn't talk about it anymore, but it has staying power because of the forum and because of this show and because the people's focus on it.
And worry and fear and trepidation.
Well, yeah. So, I think we have to celebrate what we've done so well to getting it this far. It's just amazing that it seems to be on track at the moment. But it will go off track soon, because to get up to 400,000 electric or hydrogen cars in the next 18 years, I mean, that is what the real goal is. Now think about that. There's a million cars and trucks and heavy vehicles on the roadways in the islands. And there'll be about that or a little bit more in the next 20 years. So, my goodness, 400,000, 40% of them will have to be renewable energy. Now that's getting to be a tall order here in the next few years. And so communication is going to be the key.
You mean like changing public awareness?
Yeah, and that's why the auto show has such a big feature on it, and why we had that huge Auto Watts feature this year. And you're seeing the manufacturers have to meet this standard, the CAFE standard, so they're making the cars, and the dealers are willingly selling them, and people are buying them, and it surprises everyone that it's gotten this far, and me included. I made the chart, but I really am surprised that it hit it almost exactly.
Well, I would like to see, really, whether it's by incentive or by personal decision making, that the only way we're going to deal with rising oil prices is to go electric and have the flexibility, or hydrogen, have the flexibility of not being linked, dependent on that oil. And if we don't do that, I think we're going to have a sharp stick.
Well, the elephant in the room, and we haven't even discussed it here, is natural gas. And everybody brings up that elephant in the room.
Can you make a natural gas car?
Well, they do, and they've had a lot of adapter kits now too, and so people keep questioning about that because natural gas is so affordable right now. And then the question is, will you make your electricity down at HECO with natural gas, LNG? And then how will that affect things? And so that's an elephant that really is standing right here in the room, that you're going to have to say, well, let's take a look at that elephant and see how that affects everything.
Yeah. What's your next car, Dave?
Oh, it will be about 6 years from now when when actually payment and release, and it may be one that can use both electricity and gasoline.
Oh,
You're still hedging.
Hybrid.
You're still hedging.
You're a very conservative person.
I'm not going all the way with electricity.
I think that they're going to make such tax credits. You'll love to take the sun from your roof.
That's Dave Rolf. He's the Executive Director of the Hawaii Automobile Dealers Association, and Sharon Moriwaki, the Co-Chair of the Hawaii Energy Policy Forum. We brought them together for a discussion about electric cars, the dealer's perspective. Thank you so much, you guys. Great discussion. More to come. I know there's more to come. Aloha, everyone. Tomorrow is going to be Asia in Review, so stay tuned on KGU ThinkTech Hawaii. Aloha.
Aloha. Oh, what a pleasure. Thank you.
Oh, thanks for coming. That was great. You should come back.
Oh, well, thank you. I don't know. I just wonder.
Next time you get more
I do appreciate the questions, and I do think, really, I'm sincere when I say that if the public keeps figuring it out through programs like this and what Sharon's doing with that incredible program on KGB, and the newspaper being ever willing to explain all this. I was hoping Alan Yonan would try to tackle this.
I was going to mention him. He's a buddy of mine.
Yeah. And say, Alan, break this news to us, because this is a shockaroo. Oh, he does.
He should. It's his beat.
Well, he does, of course. Thank you, Miley, for
Thank you,
being
Miley. Goes beyond.
Miley on camera. That was
Thank
beyond.
Ray for having
Above and beyond.
spared you for the extra
I
time.
will. Nice to meet you, Dave.
Pleasure to meet you too. And what you were so articulate. I think you can do radio, girl. You can do TV.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm so glad you let me talk about this story. It's the one I read twice because it's just so fascinating to me. That's great. Complex to explain. Look who's ahead and look who's behind on page 35. Wow. Here's Toyota with 86 million tons of credits. Wow. Honda and GM, and then you come all the way down here. Daimler, Chrysler, they only got 400,000.
So American cars aren't doing it, are they?
And that's because of the chicken tax. If it wasn't for the chicken tax, they'd be in there. The Congress just wanted to, protect.
Too many,
Well, they wanted to protect American car